Good morning to you, Baba.
You're welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said before we relate the news, today our focus on the program is poetry, precisely spoken word poetry, a genre that may not be very popular to some people, but which of course is very important, has a very important role to play in our physical and mental health, something that gives the artists or those who are into it the platform, the stage to be able to communicate their feelings, to be able to advocate for different things about life, and as well just entertain their audience. And one of the artists here in Bamenda has just released, or is about to release, his debut album. That's on the 22nd of April.
Yes,
and known as
DarkLight.
DarkLight. Yeah, the album is known as DarkLight. This is not an album like any other. He's actually the first in the Northwest, to the best of my knowledge, who has been able to put together his poetic compilations and come up with an album. So this is not an ordinary album that you just go to the market, you buy, and then you come, you listen to music. Here you actually listen to him talk to you. The album, he says, touches on themes of hardship, destruction, pain, and so many other things that we are going to shed light on. And we are talking about Tani Desmond Ayeah. He's a spoken word artist, and his stage name is Mottanni. Thank you, Desmond, Mottanni. Throughout the program, I'll be identifying you as Mottanni, for making it to this edition of the program, and congratulations as we look forward to launching your album.
Thank you very, very much, Mercy. Thank you so much for having me today on the program.
Okay. Spoken word poetry. Personally, I think it's when you have to compare it to the written poetry, I think spoken word is really creates a more connection. There's a connection that is created. You know, you having to listen to the poet, to the artist talk to you. Sometimes you are on stage, you have an audience that is there giving you all their attention, and this time around people will have you on their radio set, in maybe your phone, on YouTube or different other platforms, but you still understand that it's something that is not really that popular for a lot of people. Can you throw light to us? Can you enlighten us again on what it is all about, and what difference is there to the written poetry?
Thank you once more. What I say is this. I'll take you back to the yesteryears when we were in secondary school. We are used to reading poetry. We had poetry books. We had a lot of poetry books from our own renowned poets here in Cameroon, the writers, and we had those from those abroad. It was about, okay, the poet has written his poem from his own perspective, and you are reading that poem to yourself or to the class. In the long run, you're given that ability to be able to relate, look for relations between that poem and your life, or relation between that poem and a particular character in your community. That's what it was. Now, what was lacking with the poetry is it is written. Now, the emotions of the poet who writes that poem is most times challenging to put it in writing. Sometimes challenging to put it in writing, and that is the gap that spoken word poetry, which is a genre of poetry, comes in to make sure that, okay, the poets do not only write the poems, but they have the ability to communicate the poem, communicate the emotions they are feeling as they somehow vent out the words of the poem. So spoken word poetry, it's poetry that is performed on stage, poetry that is written to be performed on stage. It has a little more work to do than just writing, because you have to perform it on stage. That means you have to be able to input the stylistic devices to make it beautiful and educating and the byproduct is always entertaining.
Okay. So what's the difference when you're writing it to be read on stage and when it's just, or maybe to publish in a book?
Yes, when you're doing poetry to be made in a book, one thing, connectives, you hardly use connectives when you're writing poetry for the book. You have a stanza of 4 lines. A poetry composer, let's say a poetry piece might compose 4 stanzas or 4 lines each, and those lines might not be connected. They might have no connectives like the birds, the ants and all that. But once you're going on stage, in order to communicate and make sure that people understand, to transcribe it to spoken word poetry, you must add those connectives. You must be able to somehow voice out the stylistic devices. Like if you're using rhyme, you must be able to do that. If you're using rhythm, because what makes a poem is rhythm, it's not rhyme. If you want to do spoken word poetry, you must be somehow engraved in using rhythm, because it is rhythm that will catch people's attention before they will want to even hear what it is talking about. Once there is rhythm, what happens is this: when somebody gets a rhythm, the person starts nodding. Then the next thing you'll be asking, okay, what is this person talking about? But without the rhythm on stage, it's difficult to capture an audience. So the difference, as you say, between spoken word poetry and poetry that is written, it's the absence of those connectives. It's the absence of the poet's emotions in the words.
Yeah, but we understand that poetry is something where there's a lot of play with words. You know, I mean, from at least from the few poems that I know that I have read, you get to really, I mean, the words are so interesting. That's it. That's what even makes the genre very different and
distinct.
Yeah. So maybe that's why it will be easy for somebody to memorize a poem than to memorize maybe
a passage,
or a passage in a book. But it's easy for somebody to memorize a 12-stanza poem because of that musical thing that the writers always give to it.
That's true.
And apart from that, there is also the play of words in poetry. Like I can write a poem on this table, meanwhile I'm not talking about this table. How do you also manage that when it's on stage? Because for the written one, we are given the latitude to always read, come back, read, rethink again, try to reinterpret and say, no, this brown that the poet mentioned here wasn't actually brown, it meant this. But now that it's on stage, do you give, why do the audience have the time to rethink the meaning and really get out the themes that you want to pass across, or is it just direct?
There are poems that there are spoken word pieces that you do that are just direct. They have a particular thing that they are talking about, and any person who listens will be able to understand. But there are coded ones, as you said. They are coded in such a way that, as you say, you can be calling the name of a table, but you're talking about something else. Now, when it comes to spoken word poetry, it is more about how do you make the audience feel? How do you make them feel? Because people will forget what you say, but they will hardly forget how you make them feel. How do you make them feel with your performance? Then after that, what we are trying to do is, you are right to say that people come back to poems over and over again. Sometimes you read a poem and you only come back after a year to understand a line in that poem. That is why we are now transcribing the spoken word poetry into albums. That's one of the main reasons. Because when you do the performance on stage and you're gone, if nobody takes it, nobody records it, it ends that way. The emotions might be in the audience, but after some days it dissipates. Now we are moving to the point where we want to make sure that, okay, let the audience be able to have these poems, the vocal expressions of these poems, so that they can be able now to listen and make whatever interpretation they can do. Because one thing about poetry is, I will write from my perspective, but it's open to your own perspective. Poetry is just like the Bible. Whichever passage you pick will speak to you depending on the situation you're facing. Yeah.
And what inspires your writings? Because you're talking about sometimes you being direct and sometimes you people go the other way. What determines when you're supposed to do a direct poem, and what determines when you're supposed to bring in all the genres to play with your words and so?
Basically, what determines these things is the audience.
Okay.
It's basically the audience is always at the center of when we write. This poem you are about to perform, where are you performing it? To which audience? What age are the audience? What is the intellectual capacity of the audience? Because communication only happens when both sides have understood. If both sides do not understand, then there is no communication. Poetry intends to communicate. So what determines whether it's a direct poem or an indirect poem? It depends on where you're performing, to whom you're performing, and the age to whom you're performing. Then sometimes too, depending on the environment you're in, might prompt you to go the indirect way. The environment you're in, when you think like, okay, people will be very somehow vulgar when they hear this thing directly. It's preferable you go the indirect way, talk about something else, but it means something else. The beautiful thing is our subconscious is able to interpret even while we are sleeping. So they might listen to you talking about something else, but in the long run, the subconscious works with them and they'll see that, okay, this guy was talking about this thing and we were clapping on knowing that he was talking about this particular thing that we don't like to hear. So it depends on the environment. Sometimes too, your safety too is at stake.
I understand.
Sometimes too, because sometimes you're too emotional when you're writing, because you write from your heart. Sometimes you're too emotional and you feel like, okay, I have written. Sometimes you write from the heart, but when you come and look at it after, when you're cool, you start seeing that, okay, there are some words here that if I use, my safety is not guaranteed. If I do this poem directly the way I've written it, my safety might not be guaranteed, or I might get on the nerves of somebody who I would not like to. So the best way is, let me do it indirectly. I still express my poetry. I don't get on the toes or the nerves of everybody, but in the long run, I still communicate my message indirectly.
Okay. Now, one thing about artists like yourself, and maybe musicians, I mean arts generally, is their ability to be able to convey their own side of the story or their own life experiences, and I mean in very few words, and I mean in a very short time. So, but this doesn't mean that you people are all knowing. You do have your own challenges. You just do have things that you do not understand, topics that you people do not have a mastery of, no matter how well read you people may be. So how are you able to separate maybe your personal judgment about things to what actually is there when you're coming out with your works?
Thank you very much, Mercy, for that one.
Why do you laugh?
It's a very tricky question.
Yes.
It's a tricky one. Then it's something that everybody should consider, because what you know might be your truth, but it's not the truth. So it's something that all of us try to consider. So there are times where I do performances. Before I perform, I let the audience know this is my personal opinion.
Okay.
Yes, that whatever you hear from this poem is my personal opinion. So don't take my word for it. It is my personal opinion. It comes from my experiences. It comes from my observations. When I have poems like that, I make sure I let the audience know before it is performed. But there are poems where you can't write without research.
Okay.
You just can't write without research. If you want to write something sustainable, if you want to write something meaningful, if you want to write something that will outlive you, you have to do the research. Okay. If you want to write about a particular topic, you have to do the research. The research only helps guide you, because creativity comes when you already have the information about how these things work. Then your creativity can work now to bring out that piece. So there are certain poems you won't write without research, because it will not be valid. And validity is very important, because you're reaching out to an audience who most times will do everything to stop themselves from thinking, to take your word for the gospel. So most times, when you want to write about a particular topic, especially a sensitive topic in the community or in the nation, it is always beautiful to do research.
Okay.
There are certain poems that we had to do research before we write. There are certain that we cannot write without doing research. And that's why when I'm contacted to perform and I'm given a theme, I always ask for time if there is no time, I would prefer not to. We've had positions where audience will tell you, just come and do something. They'll call you 24 hours, come and do something. But when you look at the theme of whatever you're going, is it a workshop? If it's an entertainment show, okay, you can go and do anything. But when you look at, if it's a workshop or a conference, you look at that theme and you ask yourself, if I really go and perform tomorrow, will I be doing justice to the theme of that conference? So in most cases, the people calling you might not understand. But you as a person of integrity, you need to turn it down because you need time to do research. If they were wise enough, they would have called you earlier, give you the theme to do the research, so that you can do something that will be meaningful to the participants in that particular area. Because people come in for a seminar or conference or a workshop, their minds are already tilted. Once they've seen the theme, their minds are already tilted. Like, everything I hear should be about this theme. If you come with something different, it's challenging to actually sink into them. Preferably start with something that they are used to, something that is related to the theme before going out of it. But make sure you do your research.
Now, you as an individual, as a poet, as a spoken word artist, when does your emotion come to play? When does your personal experiences come to play? And when does maybe your objective self come to play when you're writing?
Amazing. The three persons.
Yes.
You have your emotions, you have your observations, and you have your the logical part of you. Most poems that I write, that Mottanni writes, first and foremost, it's conceived in the mind. Then I write from the heart. Most times I write from the heart. That's why if you pick my poem, the first manuscript of my poems, it's always too emotional. It is always too direct, because I'm writing, especially a poem that you're writing out of pain. I'm writing from here. So after that, after I have written from the heart, that is my emotional part of me. In the long run now, I come back and now use the mind. The mind to edit. I use the mind to edit the pieces. Now I start looking at my environment. This line I wrote here, how will people take it? Is there a softer way to say it? Is there a subtle way to say it that is not going to raise tempers? That's when I'm using the logical part of me.
Okay.
You understand? That's why I'm using the logical part of me. Then the objective part of me now comes in the end of the objective part of me, I think, is the first. Because before I write a poem, I always ask, what do I want to communicate? It's the first part. Every piece that I write, I ask myself, first question, Mottanni, what do you want to communicate? What do you want the audience to get at the end of this poem? That's why at times I'll have a title without a poem. There are times I'll have a poem without a title. And there are times I will just have an idea without a title, without a poem.
But the words just keep flowing.
The words just keep flowing. Just keeps flowing. So you have the three. First, the conception. That conception, and then most times you build an objective. Because you don't build an objective, you just stand on your toe.
And you've been in this thing for the past 7 years. Before deciding now to release your debut album, you must have met diverse audience, been to different kinds of occasions and everything. Just how has life been for you as a spoken word artist? We want to hear that live on the program. I think we are going to be discovering some of the tracks in the course of this program. We'll play some. But now this is also an opportunity to know how it has been for you this 7 years, and then at a point where you've decided that no, I want to make this thing bigger, I want to make this thing go far and wide.
All right. I started poetry 7 years ago, and I used to write when I was in Form 4.
Okay. What was the spark? What was the spark? Let's start from there.
It was a painful moment. Yes, I was going through a lot of pain from the things I was experiencing in my life. So I just took a pen from 4 GHS Bamenda. I just took a pen. I wrote the first poem was entitled Stay Clear. Yeah, I think I can remember that poem very well. But back then I just used to write. I never ever saw myself performing the poems. I was just writing to vent out the pain, because at the end of writing, I always feel a little relief. So I used to write then. And then when I left high school, I wrote a few poems in high school. Then I went to the university. That's when I had more time to write more poems. And I did write more poems, not with the intention of performing them. Yes. It's only in 2015 that one of my friends, a very close guy who believed in me even when I did not believe in myself, for Yembeka Leslie of Yem's group, he called me one day and said, there is a program in town for poets to perform. Will you love to be there? I am a person that always say yes before start asking how. So I said yes. I said yes. I said yes. I said yes, I would love to perform. I didn't even know what I'm going to perform. So what happened is, he said, okay, this program is organized by La Liberté Arts Group of Akumbo Jones, and they are having our first performance. They said the theme was love. So he said, I know you have a lot of love poems because you've gone through heartbreaks, you've gone through pains, and you've always been writing. I said, yes, girl, you know very well. So he said, why don't you come and perform one of these pieces? I said, but I don't have them offhand. I don't have them offhand. He said, it's okay, you can come and read. Or you still have, I think he called me like 2 days or 3 days before. He said, you still have 2 days, you can master and perform. I said, are you sure? He said, yes. I said, okay. On the day of the show, I came. I was not confident enough to do any of my pieces. I had to do a piece of another person, Khalil Gibran. He wrote a poem about love. That's the first poem I performed. Khalil Gibran. It's a poem written around the 1920s. So he wrote an amazing poem about love, and I have always loved it. So that is the poem I performed that day. After that performance, now I had to, when I met Akumbo Jones and I was talking with the Yembe was asking me, okay, how come you have a lot of pieces, and I know and I've read some, but you did not perform any of these pieces today? I said, I have not been memorizer. And I know be sure say the audience. I don't know how the audience they will take the poem. I don't know who will be the audience then. Yes. He told me that you have pieces that I was sure that will fit this situation, but I did not just want to choose for you, but I'm sure you could. I said, okay, next time I'll do better. So when I met Jones too, Jones told me, preferably that you have a lot of experiences, try to do your own stuff. Try to do your own stuff. It might seem boring from the beginning, but the Khalil Gibran that you cherish so much, the Tasintang Lucas that we cherish so much, and the Focho Gladises that are all renowned poets here in Cameroon that you love so much, they started by doing this. They started by writing their own stuff, and it was boring. So why don't you do your own stuff? I said, okay, I'll try. So I started by writing and reading. Writing and reading. Then I was amazed with the applause I got from one of the second performance I did. I was so amazed. People were happy. People could connect. So I told myself, okay, so these things that I used to write, they actually make sense. So from that point on, I try as much as I can that even if I don't have the time, I will hardly perform some other person's poem, especially the renowned writers. I will preferably perform a poem that is written by a normal man in the street, so that it speaks to the street, because that is what spoken word is about. Taking the poetry to the street. Those who don't read, those who don't have the time to read, or those who cannot read,
who can listen and understand.
That is the intention, taking the poetry to the street. So I would rather perform their poems than perform a renowned this thing, because spoken word poetry, first of all, is an unconventional form of poetry. Yes. As you said, there are direct times you do direct poems, there are poems you do that are indirect. So from that point on, I tried as much as I can to keep performing my poems. There are days when I will perform and I will get no applause from the audience. None at all. There are days when I will perform and I will get a standing ovation. There are days when I will perform and I will annoy someone. And that person would say, okay, from this moment we are not talking because we were talking about me.
Wow.
Yes. So, how can you be talking about me? I said, but how? There's a poem I wrote and I performed. When I performed and I went to visit one of my friends in their office, he said, I told you my story and you went and wrote a poem. So I cannot believe. I said, but Graham, I did not write about you. I was writing what I was feeling at that moment. It just happened to speak to you. But that doesn't mean I was writing about you. And even if I was writing about you, I didn't call your name. I didn't relate to you. Because there are times I've written about people, but most times it's to tell their story so that others can be empowered by their story. It is not to make mockery. It is not to somehow give exposure to their pain. In most cases, I always try to write so that your story can empower another person. Because I, for one, have been empowered by a lot of people, and there are dark moments in my life where if I didn't get those words from recorded stuff from other people, I don't know where I would have been. So I believe that if you have a story, tell it in your own words. So when I meet those who are saying, okay, I can't be able to tell it in my own words, nowadays, I made that mistake to do it in the beginning, but nowadays, if I want to write a poem about your story, I need your permission.
Even if you're not calling my name?
Yes, I need your permission. You have told me your story. I believe your story will empower another person. I believe your story
will uplift. But like you said, sometimes it's spontaneous. It's not like you're intentional that,
it's not intentional.
Okay, today I want to write this thing about mercy.
It's not. The challenge is, we all are going through the same situations in different ways. So when I write sometimes about what I am facing, you might be facing the same situation but in a different scenario, in a different environment. You'll feel like, okay, how did this guy know the story? So I'm more safer when I've not spoken to you and I don't know your story and you hear my poem and it speaks to you. Yes. But when it's somebody I have spoken to or somebody I am close to, I made that mistake to do it in the beginning, and I created a lot of enmity with people because they said I did not want my story to go out. So now I ask for the permission. Please, you've told me this. I would like to write a poem about your story. It will not, if you don't want, some cases some people are very happy. I said, okay, even disclose my identity.
Okay.
Others don't want to. So I don't want to. Make sure nothing relates, nothing like location or description should relate to me. And that is fine. So I always ask for that permission nowadays.
Okay, can you brief us about the different kinds of audience that you've had for these 7 years?
Okay.
And how your relation has been? It's true, you've hinted us that sometimes it causes problems, sometimes people are happy, but just what are the different kinds of audience that you've encountered for these 7 years as a spoken word artist?
Okay. I have had to perform poem for nursery school kids.
Okay.
Yes. I've had to perform poem for nursery school kids. That's between the ages of 3 and 11. One of my friends called me that you have to perform for these children. So when I went there, it was very challenging. What language do you use for these people to understand, for these kids to understand? And one of the best ways kids to understand is being playful. You must play along if you don't want to. So I've done it for kids. I've had to perform poems for medical doctors. Yes. There was one time there was a campaign on how do they get their research out there so that the layman can understand. It was a research on malaria, the use of artemisinin. So they had done a research here in the Northwest and they were asking, how do we transcribe this research? How do we make sure that all this scientific jargon is somehow enveloped in a poem that the layman can understand? So I was part of that project and I was asked to write a poem, and the challenge is they were asking write in the lowest language possible, the layman's language, and that is pidgin.
Okay.
So that the layman can be able to understand this research, because we face a lot of challenges once we don't understand things, once we don't know the why. So they needed to transcribe that information about malaria and about the use of artemisinin to the layman. So I've written poems for the doctors to perform, and I've performed it. I've also performed to youths. Black Swagger Poetry Slam. It's a monthly program that takes place every month, and its audience are mostly youths. Mostly youths between the ages of 15 and 60. Yes, because we've had poems from Ashu Tang Lucas, who has been part of the show. We've had poems from Gladys Focho, who has been part of the show, and those are quite big hands in poetry. Yes, poetry writing. So we have had audience like that. I've performed poems for those young ones, ages 18-25, ages 35-40, 35-50. For doctors, I've done that. For kids, I've done that. For science students too. The challenge I've also performed. You have to now write a poem that will speak to them in their language, in the scientific language. I also had that opportunity to do that. I've also had the opportunity to perform too for aged people. I think when I went for there was a poetry event in Boya Mountain Hotel. Yes, when I went there, I saw that the majority of the people were between 35 and 60. And that is the best audience I've ever had. But it's the most annoying audience because you don't know whether they are impressed, they are depressed, or they are angry while you're performing. The youths, once you use the stylistic devices, once you bring out the emotion, they just clap, they are just overwhelmed. But those parts, they just seem, they're so part, they don't look you. You talk part, they don't look you. You talk part, they don't look you. In the end, Bao just tap your hands much very quiet.
So you don't know whether they're angry or happy?
You don't know whether they are or not. The ones that are impressed might meet you behind and say, boy, that was when I correct work that way you do also. The ones that are angry will meet you behind and say, what were you saying? So most times I always tell them it's my personal opinion. That's how I always save myself. It's my personal opinion. Don't take it for the truth. But if you really want to know if it's the truth, try it, because truth is known by trial and error. You cannot even describe the truth with words. When you start trying to describe the truth with words, you miss it. You only need to experience it. So in most cases I always just tell them this is my personal opinion, and I don't expect you to believe it, but if you can, I'll urge you to try.
Now tell us about a few interesting backstage moments with your audience. That's after you have dropped your mic and maybe you're backstage. Tell us about a few interesting moments. You've hinted us on some, but let's hear more.
Okay. I remember I performed one of the poems that are in this album, Fireside, title of Fireside. When I did it at Black Swagger Poetry Lab, immediately I left the stage. One young lady ran to me crying, and she was angry. Mottanni, you made me cry. I said, what did I do? All I did was just to perform. All I simply did was just perform. He said, but the piece was so emotional, I could not help myself but cry. She said, while I was crying, it was like the poem was still playing in my head. And there was just one line that I got, that I'm here to say thank you for allowing yourself to be used to share that light. I was so interested in knowing the line. I said, which line? Because I'm always interested to know. One of the ways I know that you read the poem is when you are able to tell me a line. Yes. So I asked her which line. He said the line that goes that this tragedy is part of my cleansing. That I won't run back to the past just because it's familiar. This tragedy is part of my cleansing. So she said she was going through a lot of pain because she had to break loose from certain things she used to do and from certain people she used to acquaint with. And now everybody has abandoned her, and she is feeling like, can I go back and meet them and go back to the things we used to do? So, but she said when she heard the line that I want to run back to my past just because it's familiar, and she heard the line that the tragedy she's going through is part of her cleansing, and that the future is better than what you see now, she knows that, okay, it empowered her to continue and tell herself, let me go through this pain. I'm going to go through it, not just go through it, but I will grow through this pain such that I will have a better future. I'm not going back to those people. I'm not going back to those activities. I'm not going back to those situations.
Okay. Have you ever had a moment where you did a poem and maybe, like you said, you had people applauding and clapping, but deep inside in your mind you were like, no, I was a mess. I think these people... Yeah. Have you had such moments?
Bessie, that is amazing. That is a good one. Yes, there are times where I have actually performed on stage. Then I'm wondering, why are these people clapping? Why are they clapping? Because I know I've not delivered 1/10 of what I intended to deliver. And I'll be asking myself, why are they clapping? And the challenge is, once that happens, no matter the applause that they give, no matter the positive words or the praises that they shower on me, I still feel empty.
Okay.
I feel like, no, I did not do my best. Because for me, it's not about the applause. It's not about the applause. It's about what they get that can help them. So, if I have actually memorized the poem and I'm performing, and then I miss some of the profound lines or the profound words I needed, that I knew that, okay, I needed to say, and I didn't say them, in the long run, I feel empty. But at that point on stage, I just start acting. You put on character. Because people cannot be applauding you and you're sad. At that point, I just put on character. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. But I just have to retreat. I just retreat. And I have to start sitting and reflecting. What went wrong? Why didn't I remember this stanza? Why didn't I remember this line? Why didn't I flow the way I rehearsed? Because sometimes it's unconscious. What you practice, the written poetry. Akumbo used to say, Akumbo, when he had a workshop with us, he said, sometimes what you write is not what you perform. Yes. But at the end, how fulfilled do you feel within? So I always ask, because most times you might write and there is something that might influence and change the spirit of the performance you were trying to put on.
Okay.
Maybe a bad news came before you went on stage. Maybe you listened to a particular track before you went on stage and it changed your mood. And now you're not able to give justice to the emotions you wanted to vent out in that poem.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you know you were at your best?
How do I know I was at my best? It's just a feeling.
Okay.
It's just a feeling. When I do a performance and at the end I feel light, I feel like my body, I feel lighter than I was before that poem. Then I knew actually I have done it. It's just a feeling. I don't know if I have any algorithm or any indication that you've done best apart from that feeling that, okay, I have shared myself. That feeling that, okay, I have empowered someone. It's just that feeling that makes me feel, that makes me know that, okay, you have done your best today.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us, you're listening to the Wake Up Crew coming to you from CRTV Northwest. This morning we are talking poetry, spoken word poetry, and this is in relation to the fact that we have an artist known as Mottanni, who is about to release his spoken word, his debut album in spoken word poetry known as DarkLight, and we brought him on the program to share his experience in this field with us and all that has gone under the bridge before he finally decided to release this album. There is this question that I ask every entertainer or artist that comes here. Okay. Because I think it is very important, especially in our context where people sometimes think that, no, you, after all, I know Mottanni, no. Masadama Pikini Bede, I'll just call him, make he can do something, entertain that Pikini, and then after that, they're not even there to say thank you to you because they're busy with other things.
Very true.
So this brings I like to talk money. What's the take-home package of this thing? Or are you the type to really who you just sit in? It happens even for us as journalists.
Very true.
You just sit somewhere because somebody knows you're a journalist, you speak well, you can maybe host their events, or just pick up their phone and call you. You go there and you're leaving empty-handed. And sometimes even the thank you cannot have. In Bamenda, even you get to some of those places and you become now the event planner. You're the one now to be organizing how people will sit, who will talk next. I mean, so this money thing, have you been able to cash out from what you do?
From the beginning of the beginning of this career in poetry, I would say it was really challenging, because it was about proving yourself to others. It was about proving yourself first to yourself, then to the audience that come for Black Swagger, then also now to the community, that this thing that you're saying or this thing that you can do makes sense and can empower and sensitize them. So in the beginning, as you have rightly enumerated, I used to just go. The excitement. I was using those opportunities like a training ground. I used to not demand for anything. When you just Mottanni, there is a conference, there is a show, there is this. Would you love to come and perform? I just say, yes, on my way. There are times I had to walk on foot, on my way. What was happening is I was training myself. And I was proving myself unconsciously to the audience and unconsciously to the community. Yes, that's what I was doing. But along the way, I realized you don't need to prove yourself to anybody. If they are coming to you, it's because they know you can deliver. So, put a price tag.
Very important.
Because if you don't put a price tag, they won't value you.
Sure.
I do MC events to you, testify that you've gone for events, and after the MCing of the event, they don't even make as if you've done anything. They just continue. But once you put a price tag and they've paid your money, after the event, you don't expect anything from them, you're gone.
You go, I go.
Yes, you go your way, I go my way. So I got to a point where I said, okay, put a price tag. Because what happens is, when people get to know that you're free, they will call you at any time. And they don't care how you've been building your art. They don't care the data you use for research. They don't care how you will make it to the event. They don't care your time you will input in the event. They just want you to come. Since you don't decide you want to do it for free now, we will take them for free. If you give yourself, give people the chance to use you, they will use you. It's human nature. Whether the person is a pastor or an imam or whoever, or
go.
You're welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We still have our guest in the studio, Tani Desmond Ayeah, a spoken word artist known as Mottanni, who will be releasing his first official album in spoken word on the 22nd of April. And now, this month, Mottanni, I think we should talk about the different themes that you explore in this album. You say it's a 13-track album. Let's look at the different themes that you explore in it. Mm-hmm.
DarkLight album composes 13 tracks, and amongst these tracks, I think there are 4 tracks that are about love. There are 4 that expresses the theme love. The first track, which is Yabad, it's about the controversies that the so-called things that we do and claim it's love. Then we have another one that is man and a woman relationship. Yes, that is empty. Empty is a guy expressing himself to his lady that has left him because he was not faithful, because he did not treasure her. So she has left, and the guy feels empty, and even though the guy is getting a lot of awards and getting a lot of applause from others, but he still feels empty because that lady is not in his life. And the empty track 2, empty 2, goes to the point where, because of the rejection of that lady, he got to realize that he himself could not love, because he did not know what love is. What he used to do, he thought it was love, but it wasn't. So because of that denial, he now got to find out what love is. Then came back to the lady, not to apologize to be taken, but to say thank you for refusing, because your refusal made me realize I never knew what love is, made me do research, and I now know what love is, I now know where love comes from, and I'm ready to do what love is actually is. So that is it. Then there is the second track in the album, which is Beauty Field. Beauty Field is about empowering the woman, because we all come from a woman, and I feel like the woman feels like she's been marginalized in this our world. That's what she feels like. But I have a different opinion, because if I go back, way back to the yesteryears, you will see that most decisions at home are always powered by the woman. Even most decisions out of the home. If a woman decides that, okay, I want this community to be this way, he knows how to get through to his man, and his man will take it to the community. So I have a different perspective when it comes to women being marginalized. So it's about empowering the woman. Beauty Field. It's telling the woman who she's supposed to be. She's resourceful, she's peaceful. Those are the first lines of the poem, making her understand who she is. Because you might have something, and if you don't know that you have it, then you don't have it. If you are an intelligent person and you don't know that you're intelligent, then you are not. If you have a power within you that you can use and you don't know that you have it, you will never use it. But I know the woman has power. I know the enormous contributions the woman has done to get us to where we are. It is nothing to deny. If you look at the histories of Harriet Tubman, if you look at Queen Nefertiti, if you look at Wangari Maathai, if you look at even the Kawala we have here in Cameroon, if you look at what they have done to get us where we are, you will understand that our lives have been shaped. We were conceived by them, and our lives have been shaped by their power. Yes. Then we also have another poem. It's one of the tracks in the album also that is still about the women empowerment. It's an apology.
Okay.
An apology for the man. The character there, Mottanni there, is apologizing to the woman for all the terrible things he has done to the woman. Because it's no lie, we've done terrible things to the woman. But that does not mean that she's not powerful. When you lock a bird in a cage, it does not mean that that bird cannot fly. It does not lose its ability to fly. Any day you open that cage or the birds break through that cage, it is going to fly.
Okay.
CRTV Northwest.
We love it.
The region's radio station.
We love it.
Yahweh, waiting for update. I don't dig, define Dolo. For
Fosika say, Abimeba say, he go gérer all ya bad. Say he go calmer all tension and bad esprit, Leki Nantiba. If I fit that so easy, then don't know, for chop my esprit, Leki better dame. Or Leki some cold sun, or some fire, so that I feed the yamo, as it knock my banja. As I done for be better person. For the wise say, Ndolo pass that so mimba and asantima. Say he pass that so thing where I want am. Say he pass that so matter for Jerenga, or that so matter for Naknankanda. That's so say this matter for our community strong, for Yama Hede. Me like choco choco. If voice fi scatter my dream. Dolo feel lang say me king cap, and if he does so name me for stick. I don't chop married people the nyankanda for outside married, but that member say Nandolo. I don't hear Rippy and Remy, Jirinjaka like a princess, ton spoiler. That's what say Nandolo. I don't see Peyi Domo Peyi key people, then that's what call am Dolo. I don't see brother key brother, sister act Judah act for sister, that's what for Palavandolo.
Mo be jitalanda moi. On fait comme nous, nous on fait ma bene renjouer bene lene lene comme nous. Kabe swing babe piazo. Ya punyo to bon. A punyo to bon. Ya.
Why all the lost sense? When love did that so give now love and need that so take now himself. Why all in them? When love know the chook skin and he know the take chook skin. Why all the lost sense? When love know the ask nothing but that's all for sure himself. Why all in them? We want no sense, but then don't matter the truth. We like a hunter man is spear. Nana, that's all time. Time for me for learn for Yambut and Yamo for Sikandolo, we no man no force me. For Sika say Ndolo don't catch me, like a better person for show me road. For make me wise say number one touche, for Montre say I done some man, now forgive am all, now for sacrifice. So today, as I talk say I done some man, I no go talk say Yahweh dey my heart, but talk that so say I dey inside your core, your heart. And I go leave make Mandolo no knock chest. I go leave make Mandolo is soft. I go leave make Mandolo sabi tie heart. I go leave make Mandolo push me for that so understand other people. I go leave make my love push me for that so knock my skin for make other people yamo. Papa God, I don't dey chop my trees. For Sika say, I no sabi yandolo. I beg can knock me kaolo. For how for shade this ndolo matter. So that even if I chop my trees, make it be now for make other people for yamo. At the act this one for Sika say, now you self, you can't chop my trees. That's all for liberate me. Baba, Jika for yandolo.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. That track you listened there to is one of the 13 tracks in the DarkLight album of Mottanni, a spoken word artist that will be released on the 22nd of April. So you know just what he shall unveil on this day. And he says this track is entitled Yabad. Maybe just brief us what exactly the message that you were trying to pass across there.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, but it enveloped from Valentine's Groove Night. There was a show at Big G organized by one of our illustrious sisters who is out in the diaspora, and she decided to give back to the community. She decided to organize a Valentine's Day show, a live concert. So I was contacted and they said, Mottanni, you're opening the show and we want you to do a prayer. That's what they said. Want you to do a prayer. And that prayer should be about love because it's Valentine's Day, it's Lover's Day, so do something about that. So when I took my pen, I wrote the poem in English.
Okay.
Yes, I wrote it in English. Then my personal coach and trainer, Coach Lanjo name therefore of Lanjo Coaching, when he looked at it, he said, Mottanni, remember it's Valentine's Day, and the audience that will be at that event might not be all that intellectually savvy. So why don't we do this thing in a language that everybody will be able to understand? We can be able to transcribe this thing in such a way that all these terms that you've used there, you can use the layman's language that they'll be able to understand. And once they are able to understand, they'll be able to connect to it and they'll be able to make meaning out of it. For me, it was weird in the beginning. So I told him, okay, Graham, because he's a translator too. Saying, this is the English stuff. Take it and go and translate. He took it, he translated it. He gave me. When I read through what I had written, translated into Pidgin, I did not understand anything with the kind of Pidgin that he wrote. So I had to take the English version, the Pidgin version, and look at this line in English, and then look at the Pidgin line before I was able to understand what it was about, because I was supposed to perform it offhand. So I need to first of all understand before I can be able to give out. So that's how I had to put the two together to be able to understand. Then performing in Pidgin, when I started performing in Pidgin, in the first performances, it is weird to me. It is very weird to you for when you're going
people in Pidgin. I understand you.
When you're going out of your comfort zone, I was used to use the terms, speak the English, call all kind of terms, juxtapose the words in whatever way you want to. But Coach Lanjo will always take me back to my purpose. The vision I have. You want to take poetry to the street. You want to meet the people.
Ladies and gentlemen.
You want to meet the people. So, why don't you do it in their language? You must go down to their level if you want to uplift them. So, it was uncomfortable in the beginning doing poems in Pidgin. But the beautiful thing about it is the applause and the feedback you got from people, even when I felt like I'm not doing anything, was amazing. And the intention is always the people. Can they relate to this? Can they benefit from this? Can they understand this? So when I started getting that feedback from them, I told myself that, okay, Mottanni, in every one of your poems, even if you don't want to do it entirely in Pidgin, Pidgin more dayside. So that made them feel relate.
Right. Now, but you're also thinking of a greater audience, thinking about the fact that sometimes, especially as you're about to release an album, it can go further than the Northwest region where we have Pidgin as a lingua franca, and sometimes somebody wants to be like, what is he saying here? What does he mean by this? I don't know what he's saying, and it's not even all the time that they'll have people around who can interpret some of those things to them.
True. That is one of the beauty of an artist there. It's not about language. If you can make it beautiful, if you can make your art beautiful, people will listen even though they don't understand. And if it's that really beautiful, they will now make the effort to find out what he was saying. There are artists that have somehow enveloped our town that we don't even hear anything that they are singing. But the art is beautiful. The art is so beautiful. I will quote Fali Ipupa. He's everywhere. But he sings in the dialect. Yes, the art is so beautiful. Nigeria is even amazing because they even do it in pidgin. Yes, and one of the reasons why I even take pidgin is sub-Saharan Africa. Pidgin is somehow universal.
Okay.
It might have little differences, but it's somehow universal. And also in the album, that's why we try to also do a melange of both the English and the pidgin. So subsequently, when we'll be doing the videos for the pidgin, we'll have to put an English subtitle. Okay, and if possible, a French subtitle.
All right.
So that to reach the wider audience. But for now, we focused on the message. We focused on making the art beautiful, so that you can just savour, even if you don't understand. There are people who sing in their dialects, and you just enjoy. Just enjoy. And even though you enjoy, unconsciously you don't understand, subconsciously I believe we can understand every language.
Okay. Now let's talk about the inspiration you got from these. You've been a spoken word artist for 7 years. You have been to different kinds of events and everything. It could have just been enough for you to say, okay, I'll just say the Mottanni that you can call up, give him some money, and then he does this for you. What was the inspiration behind you coming out or releasing an album in spoken word poetry?
Okay. One of the reasons is I want the poetry to meet people in their comfort zones.
Okay.
Not everybody can come for Black Swagger Poetry Slam. Not everybody can come for the Poetry Niche. Not everybody can come for shows. So I want the poetry to be able to meet you at your comfort zone. So that maybe, just maybe, a single line might share the light. A single line might empower you to be a better you. So that is one of the main reasons why we did that. Let it meet you at your comfort zones. Because we realized also in this town that due to our ability to mismanage time for events, most business people don't attend events. And they need it. Because most of the pieces in the album, I call it therapeutic poetry. It's therapy. It's therapy. When you listen to the album, you will see in most of the albums, in most of the cases, we talk about breathe. Because we believe breathing is living. Once you stop breathing, you stop living. Most of the business people, sometimes they encounter challenges that all they need to do is just to breathe. To avoid the high blood pressure, to avoid the stress. So that's why we've incorporated it in this album, to make sure that it meets them at their comfort zone. So they can be able to also savour the
Now let's talk about where this album will be available. Is it? Are you producing a disc? Are you putting it on YouTube and everything? Because in as much as maybe you're doing this for the passion of it, like I said, you need to make money out of this thing.
Definitely.
So how do you intend to monetize this, and where is it going to be available?
Okay, the album is already available for those who want to purchase. It's available on enowdigital.com. It's the album will not be on a CD. It will not be in a flash. You can buy it online.
Okay.
So there is enowdigital.com, which is a website built by Cameroonians that you can buy. using your mobile money, using your Orange money, or using your Visa card, or using Bitcoin, whatever you want to use. You can buy it there for those in Cameroon. Enow, that's ENOW digital.com. It's everywhere. You can just go there. When you go there, you search spoken word poetry, or you search Mottanni, you'll see the album. The cost is 1,000 francs.
Okay. For the 13 tracks.
For the 13 tracks. If you want to give more, you can still get to Mottanni on his website, www.mottanni.com. You can go there. From there you can even get the album, www.mottanni.com. And it's also available for those abroad. Those abroad, for our brothers and sisters in the diaspora, and for the poetry and spoken word community out there, because we have a bigger community out there. That one is available on Bandcamp, bandcamp.com. It's an international site that sells music, poetry, whatever, to the entire world. So you can get it also there. But if you feel like, okay, you don't want to go through the stress of going online or that, you can always call Mottanni. I'm always available. I'm always at Commercial Avenue. You can call Mottanni using the number 695-614-947, 695-614-947, or 679-400-486, 679-400-486. But mind you, I'm not coming to give you a CD. I'm not coming to give you a flash. I'm coming for us to buy it together online so that you get it in your phone. Okay.
So let's talk about you talked about the release date. Do you have a special event for that day, or anything special we should expect on the 22nd when this thing goes out there to the public?
On the 22nd it's the official release day. We are planning to have an event on there is what we call the poetry niche that takes place at SOCAF there at Vatican Express. We're planning to have an event there where we are going to have semi-live performances of all the poems in the album. That's semi-live, meaning we will just have the instrumental being played and Mottanni will be performing live. Yes, we'll have the event on that day. That's where the event will be. And then the video for Fireside, one of the tracks in the album, the motivational and inspirational track in that album, Fireside, will be available on YouTube on the 29th. 29th of April. That album, that track will be, the video will be available. So now, for now, the album is available so that you can get used to the tracks. Yes, we have a lot in store. So that will be available on YouTube. And from YouTube, you'll be able to get to the stores and buy. Yes.
Anything you have more to say as we conclude on the program? Because we are about to round up.
I will just want to thank you very much, Mercy Kusi, for taking the initiative to contact me to be at this program today, because I was planning to get to you. But as the universe and God will have it, it has worked in my favor, and I was instead contacted by you. I want to thank you for your humility and for doing that. I want to also thank everybody listening to us here today. I want to say, purchase DarkLight so that the whole family can consume, because it's clean and you can both be empowered. But I'll leave you with a few quotes that I like to use. One of them is that the world wants to hear your story in your language, in your own words. So go out there and tell your story, because only you can be able to vent out the emotions and the pain you're going through. And then the other one, which is about one of the, I think we have 3 tracks in the album that talks about justice and peace, so that we can talk about what we are going through. The other one is, do not curse the darkness, just shine the light.
Oh, thank you so much, Mottanni. This is the least I could do, and I hope that through this program, it's going to be, you're going to have many other beautiful returns from this program. That's the other platform we have on CRTV Northwest, to put people like you out there. And of course, I wish you the best. I wish I can make it on the 22nd for when you're releasing everything officially. Ladies and gentlemen, now you know what to do to get the DarkLight album, spoken word poetry. Or why not, if you are so much in doubt, you can always stop by CRTV Northwest, and I can always know how to put you in touch with Mottanni. Thank you for coming, Mottanni. All the best, ladies.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
ladies
you.
and gentlemen, it's here we've come to the end of this edition of the Wake Up Crew, where we had Tani Desmond Ayeah, a spoken word artist known as Mottanni, talk about his debut album in spoken word poetry, to be released on April 22nd. We are back again on the next edition of the program. For now, keep listening to more interesting programs on CRTV Northwest.